Howdy folks, welcome back to another episode of Supa Hamsta Plays Kingdom Death Monster. As ever, do me a favour, hit the thumbs up button on this video, especially if you find it helpful, entertaining and or useful. And of course, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Help me take over YouTube one subscriber at a time. So, if you've been watching our campaign, you'll know that we're getting pretty close to the first Nemesis encounter, which means we need the Butcher model. And by an amazing coincidence, I just happen to have all of his components already cut off the sprues, as shown here. A nice 50mm base for him, and I've gone ahead and cleaned all those up with my trusty craft knife. So, for the most part, you'll work out exactly where he goes. His feet come in two halves, but it's pretty obvious which half goes with which foot. You have the three main parts to his head, or to his body rather. You have this part of his head that's missing an upper and a lower part of his helmet, and you have this shoulder pad here that's missing an upper and lower part of a jawbone. Some creature that the butcher has slain. These are the four parts in question. These tiny little bits. They're all very similar. They're basically a jawbone with some protruding tusks or fangs. They all come on a small section of sprue about yay big that's just got the four of them on. The two for the shoulder pad are labelled up as F9 for the upper and F14 for the lower. And the parts that make up the rest of the helmet are F10 for the upper and F13 for the lower. And if you keep those pairs separate, you should be fine, because the larger one's obviously the underside, and then the smaller one is the top. Okay, technically, I suppose, chomp, 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 chomp. Anyway, cement and brush. As I did with the antelope, I'm going to assemble the model and then stick him on the base. And he's kind of an odd one, because if you think that's his torso, that's his body, you would think it's going to be positioned pretty much in the center. But by the time you add his cloak, it adds a lot of weight to the back. So, but yeah, first things first. I'm going to take the two halves of his fur cloak and I'm going to stick them together, and they only really fit one way. Keep the flat sides going. I mean, when you first put it in, you can get it so that they fit, and there's a big gap on this side. But if you twist it, everything then snaps. I mean, it doesn't snap, it won't. You know, it's in place, all lined up, but there's nothing actually holding it there. But yeah, flat side there, flat side there. So let's get cracking on that. When you're taking the big part of the cloak off, do not remove this lug. It's meant to be there. It's not a cast line or a mold line or anything like that. It is part of the model. So don't chop it off thinking it's in the way. Because it is in the way, but it's meant to be in the way. So we'll just get that to line up. And there it is. That's all in the right spot. Just want to move that out of the way, then you can probably see a bit better. Can you do that? Focus on. Actually, it is a little bright, isn't it? I'm just going to turn one of my lights out and see if that helps. Does, doesn't it? Right, there we go. Well, it's harder for me to see, but hopefully it's better for you. So, quick splash of cement around the joints, particularly on the inside, because you're not going to see it. And that's the cloak done. Right. Whilst that is drying, I'm going to stick the feet onto the side of the boot. If you're looking down, that's his shin there. the foot has been split in half, so you've just got to stick on the other half, and yeah, this little recess. It'll all make sense when you've got it in front of you, but it's probably the second easiest model so far to stick together. Far and away the easiest so far being the antelope, which I don't even know why I bothered with a video for that one. It's so straightforward. And when sticking his feet together, just be careful of the claws that extend up from the boot, because they're meant to be there. They're not mould lines again. Yeah, that's his boot. And I'll do the same on this side. Okay, so there got his two boots. I'm pretty sure that way, but it might be the other way. But either way, he has two boots. Next, I'll do his head. And if you look at his head, the spikes are on the top and coming around, and his face is looking in the direction of the pencil. And then you have this large jaw that has a sort of square lug on the bottom. That's the lower jaw, and that square lug is a square socket in his neck. So yeah, on the underside of that one there is a square lug. I don't know if the camera's going to focus on that or not, but it's there, and that's the one we're going to do next. So if you lay it down with the lug on the bottom, it'll sit fairly flat because the lug's flat, and his head, if you tilt it up so it's now vertical, should just sit straight in and will sit in that jaw. So, tiny bit in the lower jaw, bit on the bottom of the helmet. That's that. We'll just leave that to sit there for a bit, and when that's dried, I'll move on to the upper jaw. We'll come back to the cloak, and in the back you have this large recess which lines up with that big peg, and then everything sort of snaps together. Now this is going to be quite a fiddly bit, so I'm thinking I'm going to assemble that piece before I put the cloak on, just so I've got easier access to it. So again, we'll start with the lower jaw, which is the one with the bigger teeth, and there is a definite recess in that shoulder pad that's straight, and the back of this one is also straight, and funnily enough one just sits in the other. So there's the recess, and there's the jaw. Jaw in recess. That fits. It's not a fantastic joint, if I'm honest, but you can't see it because it's going to be on the back, which is going to be hidden by the fur anyway, so that's fine. And then the upper jaw, which is actually slightly confusing because the teeth go up, they don't go down as you'd expect. But there's a flat piece on the shoulder pad. There's a flat piece on the back of the jaw. One, funnily enough, fits up against the other. And then square it up. And for that, I'm going to use this pencil as a pointing stick. And it looks like some sort of angry warthog. And go over the whole thing with a quick splash of cement. And got some on the teeth there, so we'll clean those up as well. That's that. Come back to the head. We'll do the upper jaw again with the teeth pointing up. Small recess. I did a lot of dry fitting off camera, and this one isn't great, so you might need to do a lot of dry fitting, which is just holding the pieces in place without any glue. Work out where it doesn't quite fit on yours. Trim it away, and eventually you'll find the right bit. Just be careful with the trimming. There you go. I just felt that pop. Yeah, sort of, it was in place and then it moved and stopped. And yeah, now you've got the little eye socket in the skull. Because again, this looks like he's wearing the skull of some sort of warthog or carnivore type creature. Right, so we have 2 arms, 2 legs, front and the back, which go together fairly well, but I'm not huge. There's a bit of a gap on this side when it fits together. It's not a bad joint, but on this side, see, there's quite a gap there, and I'm tempted, if I trim just a tiny bit off there, I should get a better seal around the fur, because the fur wouldn't hang. If that's the shoulder pad, the fur wouldn't hang like that. It's going to wrap itself around, whereas at the moment it's kind of like that, I suppose. Yeah, it should be that, and it's sort of there at the moment, which is just going to bug me a little bit. So I'm just going to trim a tiny bit off here, again with my knife. Now the angle I'm looking at that, let's see, will the peg show up? Yeah, so you can see the peg just there is quite square. I'm going to trim it back slightly that way. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but just a tiny bit, because that's the way that the torso actually sits. Yeah, hopefully you can see that now. And there, it's at a slight angle. That's square, so it was square, and I've trimmed maybe a millimetre off this side and next to nothing off that side. And don't do that with knives, dangerous. If I'm right, that should now fit a bit better. Still good on that side. It's a little bit closer. Do I want to go even further? See, I could tilt. See, if I do it, pinch it at the base, big gap. If I splay it slightly, it's not a bad gap, but it's still not great. So I'm going to trim a tiny bit more off that. When you're trimming stuff like this, always start small, because it's a lot easier to cut another tiny piece off than it is to stick another piece back on. Although with polystyrene, cement and so forth, that's not impossible. So where are we? It's a much better joint. Much happier with that. Feels much solid. Much solider. Good words. Feels much more solid. So we'll get that out of the way. Let's remove all these bits so we don't get confused as to what's a bit and what's not. And the only bits that really contact there are around the top. All this bit here is hanging loose. And I'm going to do this one a bit different because I'm not sure exactly where on that model it meets. There is no groove or line or whatever other than the recess in the back. So I'm just going to be a bit more generous on this side. And plenty in there. And then when I stick the two together, that should hold. And I can then go back and be quite generous and flood this bit. Not flood, but you know what I mean. You get what I'm saying. You pick up what I'm putting down. And yeah, as I said, there is a definite gap where it hangs down. So he's quite, I know I'm doing this, but I'm sitting quite upright in my chair and rolling my shoulders back, but you can't see that at all. So yeah, so that's that. The head, of course, will sit in its little socket there. So that will be the next one we'll do. And you've got the tiny recess and the little socket. You've got the same on the back, on the base of the head. And that just sits in place. Don't want to pull the front of his helmet off. Let's reattach that. And again, another quick splash around the joint. And we'll leave that one for now. And I'm going to leave that one for a moment, and then I'm going to come back and do his legs. And of course, the arms. Okay, so our butcher model is now in 5 much easier to handle, much larger pieces. The cloak and the head have set pretty well. I suppose it's been half an hour to an hour maybe since I glued it all in. Pardon me. The legs. There's one that's quite broad at the top, and there's one that sort of tapers to a point. The broad one is his right leg, so it goes on the left side of the model as you look at it. And it's got a 2-part sort of bevel to it, and the model's got its knee there, so straightforward. Let's stick that one on first, so we know what we've got to work with. If you come at it from the side, you can see where the joint and things are, because it's not all that clear, if I'm honest. The leg joints on the butcher are not its best moments. And this one is even worse. There's a vague sort of area that dictates where it goes, but it's not exactly a socket, it's more a sort of vague bit. So there is a bit of wiggle room on these, so you're going to need to, you definitely want to do these with polystyrene cement so you've got the time to adjust things and get it into right. You do it with super glue and you could get the first one not lined up, you're in trouble. Yeah, see where I've gone there? They're both sort of tapering in and they don't come flat, so I need to adjust that quite a bit. And of course I don't want him pigeon-toed, so I've got to make sure they're both fairly straight. Yeah, I'm just trying to get them so that they're flat. So if I leave him there, then gravity should sort of assist and straighten things out a bit. But yeah, definitely lacking some sort of proper joint there. So fortunately with polystyrene cement, you've got the time to get the wiggle room right. Yeah, there's actually quite a gap back there. You can't really see it because of the cloak, which is good. And by the time it's painted, you won't see it at all. But it's not the strongest joint I've ever seen. But it'll do. It'll get the job done. Although his feet do look very crooked, so adjust it out a bit. Display it fraction. Is that better? That's a lot better, actually. By the time that's set, that'll be a lot tougher. Yeah, that should do. And the arms, you can tell which is which because of the way the thumbs are, but basically you've got the curved one in his left hand and the straighter one in his right. The cloak, the shoulder pad and the side of the torso form quite a socket, so they're fairly straightforward to locate. Again, they're not as perfect as they could be in as far as having an actual socket or an actual peg or whatever. There is a bit of room in there, but you know, that just lets you individualize, personalize your butcher slightly compared to someone else's. Yeah, so that one just goes on there. And then the same on this side. This one's a lot better actually. It's got a definite angle. That other one has, as I say, it's got a bit of wiggle. Which, you know, right time, right place has its advantages, but you're trying to assemble a model that's only supposed to go together in one way. Not so much. But there is the butcher. You can see I don't know what he's got under there, but we'll get him centralized, which means I actually need him ever so slightly forward. A bit too far forward there. Very central that way. Fairly central that way. Pretty central that way. And that way. And that's the butcher. So a bit more involved than some of the monster models, with the fine bits, particularly with those jaw bones and things that make up his helmet. But there you go. There he is. No good way to show that. So, but yeah, hopefully you found this one useful, as you are with the other modelling videos. I know I'm getting a lot of feedback on those ones, that they're quite helpful. So I'll be continuing with those, obviously, as we go through the campaign and we find more and more unpleasant things that want to kill us. Do me a favour, hit the thumbs up button on this video. And of course, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Help me take over YouTube one subscriber at a time. This is Super Hamsta signing out. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye.